People are people. Customers can be annoying sometimes, or they can be annoyed.
Hello and welcome to Meet the Coach. I'm your host, Carla Egan, and today we're going to be talking about what every salesperson and business owner wants to know. It's how to achieve a better sales performance. Our guest today is Frank Ferrara from Stellar Education. Now, Frank's been in customer service, in sales and sales management for over 22 years. It's a long time. He teaches businesses and salespeople how to close more sales. And he focuses on demonstrating value and relationship building in the sales process. Frank's based in Melbourne, Australia, and joins me today. Hi, Frank. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Carla. Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's great to have you. Now, our theme today is centered around the secrets to converting more clients. And I'm keen to jump into this topic with you, Frank. But before we do that, can you share with us your experience in sales and what led you to creating your own business that combines sales and coaching?
Yeah, sure. So I can happy to explain. My very early background was nothing to do with sales. I have a pretty strong background in science and even a little bit of engineering. So I started in sales in customer service, basically dealing with inbound sales types of transactions. But I quickly progressed into management. I learned the business pretty quick. So I was managing a team. I was doing outbound selling at that point. I was managing a sales team. And I was pretty lucky over the journey of the last 20 years of working in 4 very, very good businesses that saw double-digit percentage growth in those businesses. So I'm talking about businesses that grew from $8 million to $30 million over a 6-year period. Those sort of growth experiences, which taught me a hell of a lot. And really, in the last 5 years, I worked in a business that was following a similar trend. And the question was, how do we take this selling, this experience to the next level? And we invested in sales training and coaching. So that's where I really fell in love with the craft. And it really came down to the psychology of influence. Everything was grounded in that. And I learned that as good as I was at sales and as good as I was at managing sales teams, there was still some missing elements in what I was doing and what the team was doing that I felt could add a lot more value in that space. So I fell in love with it so much that I left corporate life and I set up my own business called Stellar Education. And now I do it full time. And I've in a short period of time, I've helped already in less than 2 years, I've helped over 50 businesses develop their sales process and their sales growth.
Wonderful. You've got a lot of experience and moving, 8 million to 33 million in 6 months? That's incredible growth.
6 months. If I said 6 months, I apologize. It was about, so the last business I worked in, it was those sort of jumps, but it was over a period of years. So the last business I worked in grew from 8 million to 26 million in about 7 years. But I worked in 2 other businesses that had similar trajectories, like tripling in size over those sort of periods of time. So I've only really worked in 4 organizations, but lucky enough to be part of such an awesome growth trajectory. And I really get what it takes to grow a customer base.
Yeah, you do. That's evident. Now, I wanted to pick up on a topic or a word that you mentioned in your intro, and that's your science background. Now, I've actually heard you say that the sales process is really simple when you apply science to it. And I want to explore that a little bit with you, Frank. And I want to ask you, can you expand on what you mean by that?
Certainly. So my brain, as I mentioned earlier, I started off in the science and engineering sort of background. So my brain works in very logical sequences. So there is definitely a science to selling. Aside from the psychology can be quite complex because we're human beings and we have emotions, etc. But selling is really a sequential set of steps. And those steps are really to create 2 things. We want to lower buyer resistance. And when we're dealing with our leads, prospects, and clients, we want to lower their buying resistance. And we also want to make it easy for buyers to buy. So we want to make the onboarding process a lot easier. So we want to do those 2 things in the steps that we're taking. Now, the steps themselves are these. So selling looks something like this. Client sees our business through our marketing, etc. So they make contact with us potentially, or we may make contact with them. But client sees our business, we acknowledge them, we act as quickly as possible. That's called speed to lead. That's really important. That's an important step. We qualify them. Are they the right client? Are they the right potential client for us? As in, do they fit our business? So we qualify them. Then we qualify ourselves. Are we the right people for them? So we need to qualify that we are able to give them something of value. And that is the next step. Beyond that, then we're in a position to make an offer. So the next step is we make an offer to the buyer. And if it aligns with what they are looking for, what they need, what they want, etc., then the final step is we get a commitment from them. These are as simple as the steps get. And we just do this over and over. Selling is just doing this in a repetitive fashion. And obviously, the more you do it, the easier your language becomes, the more effective it becomes. You get more commitment, you build relationships. So this is all the good stuff that falls out of it over time.
I can see your engineering background coming out. This is sequential steps, and it's a logical process. And look, it does sound simple enough, Frank, but why is it that sales still frightens some people, that they shy away from it?
That's a really good question, because as much as my brain tends to lean to the logic side, selling is very much an emotional experience, and the emotion is the stuff that I really needed to grow into to become even more effective at sales. And the main reason why selling is scary to people, myself included when I was a lot younger, is that we essentially fear rejection. We don't like being told no. We don't want to feel inferior. There's all of these limiting beliefs around what someone might say if we put ourselves out there. So this does scare the hell out of people. That's why cold calling is not a very popular exercise, even though it can be very effective. So that's a real emotional element to selling, which people need to conquer to be effective in sales. Other things that are secondary, in my view, are things like lack of knowledge. Do you really understand the company's value? And we're selling three things. We're selling the company, we're selling ourselves, and we're selling the product. So are we knowledgeable enough to talk about these things in a way that's full of conviction, certainty, and if we're able to do those things, that has an impact. We've got the confidence to do that. So articulating value is kind of a secondary thing, but it's still pretty important. And if you don't have that, you don't have the confidence. So that can be quite scary.
I like your point that you are selling the company first. You're selling yourself second, and then it's the product or the service. And we tend to forget that part. We just think it's all about the product or the service. And I think that's a really important part and an important component of that sales process. And I want to jump ships here for a little bit and talk about marketing, because marketing is important as well in a business. I mean, you see ads on TV, social media, special offers, blogs, etc. So it does play an important part. So is selling really important in every business? Is it an important component?
1000% yes. I'd be silly to say anything other than that. Look, if you don't sell in your business, you're effectively praying that the gods are on your side all of the time. And you look at what's happened in the last 18 months with COVID, a lot of people have been left high and dry. The clever ones have pivoted and maybe changed their service. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able, regardless of what's happening in the marketplace, you've got to be able to put yourself out there and find new business. So if you're not doing that as a practice, you may have a great business now where you've got existing clients, great referrals, word of mouth, all that sort of thing. But is the customer base static? And the chances are it probably is. So selling is a way of growing that, reaching out into the marketplace. The other two really important points I want to make here is that if you're not selling, you're actually not in touch with what's happening in the marketplace. You kind of live in your own cocoon. And selling is about getting out there and finding out what customers want and what they need, and getting feedback on your own product and service. Because that's really important, and that also feeds into your ability to innovate, because that's the other critical thing about growth, is staying ahead of the curve.
Great, I like that. And what about the people that are watching us, Frank, or listening to us today? what would you say to them that they're relying on marketing to drive leads and to attract clients? What's your advice to them in relation to embracing the sales process?
That's always an interesting tug of war, the sales and marketing thing, I find. However, it needs to be synchronous. Marketing is so essential to sales. Marketing is all about creating visibility in your business. It's about creating credibility. I mean, really, really good marketing takes care of a big chunk of the sales process, and the really good marketing companies out there can even execute on the sales process with their marketing. So we've seen some very few businesses do that, but marketing is really, really important. However, you still need to close the deal. So you can bring all of the leads in the world into your business, and the marketing will determine the quality of the leads. So are they cold? Are they warm? Are they hot? Are they a right fit for your business? So you really need to apply selling skills to do those steps I talked about earlier. Are they right for us? Are we right for them? And let's get a commitment. What's the commitment? You need to effectively close the deal.
It sounds simple, but it is a lot harder than what people give it credit for, and it is a real craft. So let me ask you a really curly one. Why is it so difficult for some salespeople, some businesses, to land a new client, to get new clients?
The number one reason is really basic. It's lack of familiarity. We don't know enough about the client. We don't know enough about the type of client that we want. So we often will spray and pray and hope we hit something. So lack of familiarity is a big one. Lack of resilience is another one. You know, we might make an approach and ask for the business potentially, or reach out and talk to some people, but if we don't close the deal in that first conversation, we might not have the resilience to go back again and have a follow-up. So lack of resilience is a big one. Self-limiting beliefs is another one. You know, I'm not going to ask them to buy it because I don't think that they'll want to. So we create our own glass ceilings around that, and sometimes just simply don't ask for the business. And probably the last thing that I'll mention too, which is really, really important, is having good systems. You know, if you're trying to grow a customer base, I mean, these days, everyone's got access to really good, cost-effective CRM systems like, you know, Salesforce is probably more on the corporate end, but platforms like HubSpot, Zoho, these are fantastic systems for managing large customer lists, where you can create some systemization around how and when you contact the people on your list. So you can build these relationships so that over time, you will get their business if you stick at it.
I can see where your coaching comes into play with some people that may have challenges around asking for the sale, because asking for the business sometimes can be difficult for some. But you're obviously very good at it, because you've just said in the last 2 years you have worked with over 50 different businesses. So Frank, you know, thinking about your business, who's your ideal clients that you'd like to work with and help and attract more of?
I'm really excited right now because I've just launched a new program called Stellar Sales Revolution, and it's really about taking these skills to the small business enterprise, SMBs and maybe smaller SMEs, where they might not have a dedicated sales team, and they're looking to upskill in these areas. Because in my view, they need to be nurturing the lists in their business. They need to create some sales activities that are driving their pipeline, and they need to get better at sales engagement. So I've created essentially what is a 10-month program for SMBs and SMEs to join, and effectively in 6 hours a month, they're able to in a group setting, so up to 10 SMB individuals in a room, just fleshing out these ideas and putting them into practice. It's 6 hours a month, so it's not a case of spending, too much time on it where they can't do other things. But over time, their conversion rate, their pipeline, all of those things will definitely pay dividends.
I tell you what, if you can get rid of those spray and pray sales approach that you see at networking groups, and I've seen them. I'm just picking up on the phrase that you mentioned. You're just throwing out your business cards, hoping that one of them will land and someone will, buy from you. That's not what networking's about. So, but a lot of people will use that approach, thinking that it is a sales approach. So I really love you've got a program and the systems around the approaches for closing more deals, and but through value and through relationship building, rather than just a technique or a tactic that you use. So I think that's fantastic. Now, Frank, you're a member of the coaching directory, and we're delighted to have you on board. What does it mean for you and your business for joining the coaching directory?
Well, first of all, Carla, as you know, I think the coaching directory is a fantastic initiative, because I firmly believe everyone needs a coach. I mean, the best performers in the world in anything have a coach. So why isn't everybody looking to coaching to improve the things that they're trying to get better at and things that they want to do in their lives? So I love that concept that you've created a place where people can find coaches, because I think the visibility for me, now that environment exists, it's an opportunity to create visibility and credibility for me. Because the other thing about coaching is you really want to get the right coach for you. Coaching is such a huge industry now, and it's growing at a rate of knots. But getting the right coach for your business, I think, can be tricky. So I think having the coaching directory is a great place to sort of develop that next level of make sure you're, getting the right people for you. And the other thing too is it's just a great place to network and create more referral opportunities. So it's just a great environment to be part of.
And we're delighted to have you. Now, as we wrap up our interview, Frank, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given that you'd like to share?
The best piece of advice. Okay, so since we're on the topic of sales, I'd say the very earliest lesson I ever received was never take it personally. And that's probably going back 20 years, but I never forgot it, because people are people. Customers can be annoying sometimes, or they can be annoyed. So, instead of taking on board their comments or their behavior and wearing those things and getting upset, never take it personally. And we might make mistakes as well sometimes. And in sales, we've always got to think about the client first. So that lesson for me was fantastic. Never take it personally. Good
advice. And that brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you, Frank, for joining us on Meet the Coach and for educating us around some of the secrets around converting more clients. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much, Carla. This has been a lot of fun.
And thank you to our audience for watching and listening to Meet the Coach. You can connect to Frank from Stellar Education on the coaching directory. If you enjoy our show, please rate and review us, and be sure to catch us in the next episode. This is Carla Egan from the coaching directory, where we help you connect to your ideal coach.